Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of We Believe, Do You? I'm Michelle.
And I'm Eric.
And before we get on with today's interview, which I'm like super excited about this. Are you?
Yeah, I'm definitely.
Yeah, I'm going to try not to like word vomit a whole bunch of questions, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, so it was Thanksgiving holiday over like, recently, yeah. I guess I should say. And I went to go visit my dad. We always joke that there's like a ghost there. Because doesn't it feel like there's like something there? Or?
Well, I mean, I never joked about it before, but like there's definitely stuff that I guess happen occasionally, but you know, as people usually do, just kind of like
blow it off.
Yeah. And then I think I ended up like I was doing work after I got home. You know, I was finishing up some work when I got home in the morning from my night shift, and kind of saw like a man standing in front of me and stuff.
Oh, that was so creepy.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't tell anybody about it except for Michelle, I think, and then I think.
And you said, oh, sorry, I was gonna say you said you're like half awake, half asleep, right? Like
yeah, I was kind of like
dozing off.
Yeah, I was kind of starting to doze off, and then all of a sudden I see like this man standing in front of me, in front of the kitchen table, and as usual, you know, I'm like I only get to see like the bottom half of the person, and as soon as I start getting to the head, like I usually rarely get to see their face. It's very rare.
Yeah, I always get that feeling like someone else is in the room with me, or just kind of there. It's not even just like the bedroom that grandma's in, it's just kind of everywhere. Sometimes it'll like pop up like someone's just walking by, and I'm like, what is that?
Yeah. So we got that message from Ruth recently, and she was talking to us about how, well, it was actually a few weeks ago, right? That she told us that like she was asleep and that Dad was there next to her, and then Fluffy, their dog, was there next to her as well, and all of a sudden she felt kind of like the sheets got flipped off of her feet or something. Was it right? But then she
pulled.
Yeah, and so she thought first that it was maybe my dad, but my dad was laying there, and then she thought it was the dog too. But since she saw both of them there, she was like, "Oh, it must have been, you know, my mother-in-law, my grandmother, you know." And but no, my grandmother wasn't in the room. She usually doesn't go into the room, you know, if they're both there and stuff like that. So. Yeah, she ended up having that happen, and then apparently she must have told you because she didn't tell me about the second instance.
Oh yeah, really?
Yeah, she didn't tell me.
Like she felt like that tug, I guess, of the sheets or whatever. But then also she felt like somebody like grabbed her foot and like yanked on it, and she, same thing. Thought like, oh, for sure, like it's Dad, but he was asleep. Like it wasn't him. She was kind of like freaked out by it.
Yeah. So yeah, it was weird because again, I think this time, the second time, I don't think Dad was there. I want to say that she said that.
Was it not in the same time, like same night?
No. I think she said the second time was when Dad was on call, so he wasn't even there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and then I know you said that when you were here, that you felt like somebody was watching you and stuff like that. Or is it other times as well? Oh,
no,
really?
it's just always, yeah. Like I have, Grandma was like giving me shit for like covering my entire face with pillows, but that's kind of how I keep, like, that's how sometimes I have to sleep. Like if it just feels like this, like intense, like somebody's in the room or someone's just staring at me, and I'm just like, I just want to go to sleep. I just cover my entire face with pillows, and then I can't feel it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I deal with that.
So that was that Thanksgiving, right? Okay, so now we want to go ahead and introduce Joseph Mendez. I actually, again, saw him on a Facebook group because ever since we started the podcast, I joined a few of them. And I saw that he kept kind of like posting, and he's a paranormal investigator. And I was like, you know what? I think it'd be pretty interesting to have somebody on like that because I don't know. We've been really interested in that kind of stuff for a long time, and I know we've dabbled, but never really.
We want to, but we're too chicken shit to actually do it. Basically,
what she said. But yeah, Joseph, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Joseph Mendez. I am a paranormal investigator here in San Antonio, Texas. I recently just honestly got back into it and started a new YouTube channel and YouTube show called The Paranormal Journal. So that's my main focus right now that I've been working on. So I've been doing paranormal investigations almost my entire life, but just really not out there in the public. I haven't made myself there to available to a lot of people and stuff. It's just been something that I've been doing on my own as far back as being a kid, as probably around 15, 16, I really got into it back then. I was a huge fan of like the X-Files and, all the shows back then before, the ghost hunting shows made it big. That was my thing. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Because I grew up in a family full of the stories and full of the background within it. My family had tons of stories, ghost stories, things, sightings that they've seen throughout San Antonio. And if you know Texas and San Antonio, it's filled with stuff like that. So yeah, I've been doing it for a very long time and just recently decided to make it kind of a public thing. And I've been into filmmaking and writing. And I have another show called the Fermentation Sessions where we go around and talk to local breweries, small batch craft beer breweries. And so, we're on downtime during the quarantine and, a lot of things that were happening in my house led me to really just jump back into it. And I can go into more detail about that in a little while. But yeah, that's basically me in a nutshell, man. It's my passion now and something that it's always been, but really diving into it and making it more of a public thing is what I'm doing now. So it's a pretty interesting field now, and it's grown so much since back in the day. The equipment and the research that goes into it has gotten so much better. So it's really cool to jump back into it.
Yeah. And do you think because of quarantine and everything that's going on that a lot of people have had more time to kind of like I don't know, like want to get into this or start doing this kind of investigation and stuff like that?
Well, that's how it happened to me, to be honest. So, I've been living in my place. It's a small little condo complex, like a giant apartment, basically. And it's a pretty old complex. So the floors are made of wood. And anytime you're walking in the house, you can hear like footsteps. Like you will hear the footsteps if you're in my room. If you're in the living room, you hear everything, basically the floor above you. The steps, when you walk in the steps, you hear solid footsteps. Even when the dog comes downstairs, I know when he's coming downstairs. He's a big boy. So, during the quarantine, for us, we're home, 3 months. It was 3 whole months that we spent here. And we just started to notice a lot more. So, being here for the past 5 years, we'd hear little things here and there. But, for the most part, we thought maybe it was raccoons because there's a bunch of raccoons in the area. But the footsteps started happening and we're like, what? Like, we'd be downstairs watching a movie and I'm looking over and I'm seeing my wife, I'm seeing my daughters there and my dog. And I'm like, so who's upstairs? So it started getting just very active. And I think the fact that we were here at home more often, we were able to realize it more. So I think, yeah, if people are staying home and staying indoors and not leaving their homes, I think, some people probably did notice a little bit more than others. So that's what got me back into it. So, I'm here hearing these things and just experiencing stuff. My daughters are saying, that they felt somebody coming down the stairs with them when nobody was going down the stairs with them, little things like that. So, I'm online and I'm like, let me see if I can go on the ghost shops and everything and see what they got there. And, we're getting a little bit of that quarantine money coming in that, we were doing pretty decent. So I was like, well, I got a few extra bucks. If people are buying TVs and bikes, let me buy some equipment here. And
paranormal equipment.
yeah. So my wife at first was very like, no, you better not, not in this house, do it outside the house. But I'm like, but what's happening here is inside the house. I want to get back into it.
I've actually heard in a lot of like the paranormal podcasts, I guess, that I listen to, that since quarantine, like you said, people are in their houses more and like they're starting to notice like there's been a spike in paranormal activity, I guess, essentially. Mm-hmm. But it's just, that people are home and are forced to kind of be in their spaces now more than
before. And they're noticing it. Yeah. And it's just funny because, I'm on both ends of it. So, I'm one of those where now with the show and everything, I don't want to be one of those shows where it's all, I don't want to say stage or elaborate because I'm not going to talk smack about the ghost hunting shows because they're interesting. They're fun to watch.
He's talking about Ghost Adventures, guys.
But, what was cool is, so getting into it and getting back into it, like really in depth again and just trying to see if there's new things that I haven't, seen or learned, watching some of the YouTube. I mean, YouTube is like the gateway to knowledge. Anything you want to learn, you go to YouTube now. There's no reason for school anymore. So, I came across a few shows and there was one that I just really loved and it's called The Haunted Side and they're on YouTube and they're great, man. And I love them because there's no BS behind them. They're just basically out there having fun, going to these really cool haunted locations in Nevada mainly. And they bring other paranormal investigators on, and when I was watching their show, I was like, man, I really want to do something like that. You know, we're not doing fermentation sessions right now, so let me see if I can start doing something like this. Get my camera guy on board with me, and yeah, he was all for it. And so we basically just decided that's what we're going to do. We're going to go back and start, you know, this YouTube channel, and you know, whether it gets big or not, you know, it's all good. But you know, it's all about, you know, fun, and I guess giving that knowledge out to people too, to show that it's not all the oohs and the ahs, and you don't hear something all the time. So, you know, like our first episode, we did the Gunter Hotel downtown, and you know, we stayed there from 6 p.m. all the way till about 8 a.m. and stayed up all night trying to record evidence and document evidence, and we got 28 minutes of an episode out of it. That's it, you know, because you know, most paranormal investigators will tell you, you know, sometimes you don't even get anything. We could have gotten nothing that night, and we were fortunate that we had some stuff happen to us, and it was pretty interesting when it did. So, you know, we made it what we could out of that episode.
Do you think that shows, like, we won't name names, but shows where like they kind of go, they're
I'm gonna name names. Shit.
okay, yeah. they you know, they exaggerate a lot in like their reactions and stuff. Do you think that shows like that are kind of detrimental to like what actual paranormal investigation is like, or how do you feel about that?
I think they do. I think they do the right steps. Like, so the thing I will respect about them is when they do debunk stuff, you know, it's pretty cool because they'll sort of debunked, you know, and things like that. And a lot of shows will say they're trying to find an actual reason. Of course, you know, it's about the money, man. That's their job. They got to do what they got to do. And I like how it brings the fascination into it, because heck, without those shows, nobody would be looking and searching on YouTube for the shows that I'm trying to make, or, you know, these other guys are trying to make them. But you know, it's one of those where some research, I feel, it's because ghost hunting isn't a proven science. It's not a proven fact-based science, and a lot of people won't recognize it. You know, and you know, Great Britain and all these other places, England, they are trying really hard to make it an actual fact-based science, and they have classes over there that you can partake in and stuff. And here, that's not the case. So I think there's a lot more technology going into it now, and fact-based technology that you can document, that's really helping make it, you know, a more proven science. And I think those shows, you know, they're pure entertainment, and they do show the right steps to it, but they use a lot of old school technique, which makes it even more fascinating. It makes it feel like they are getting results. So, you know, I can't dog on them. I don't think it's detrimental. I think it's more of, you know, if people really want to learn, they have to go to the people that aren't making the shows, to be honest.
Yeah.
You know, they have to experience it firsthand and see that that's how it really happens. But
yeah, I think for me, again, I am going to name names. Like, for me, Ghost Hunters is more entertainment.
Theatrical.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
a lot more theatrical. I enjoy it because of just the reactions that they have, like the evidence that they get, stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's fun to watch and stuff, and it gives you that kind of like chills feeling and stuff like that. The show that I feel like does it, and again, I'm not a paranormal investigator, so it's like me when I watch medical shows, I'm like, okay, well, that's wrong, or that's you know this and that. So I can't really, since I don't do that, you know, for a living, or do it often. Like, I can't really say, oh, you know, this is right, this is wrong. But for me, ghost hunters, I feel like they're a little bit more inclined to not overreact to everything. They do overreact to certain things, but not as much as I feel like Ghost Hunters does.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like they're more inclined to debunk things than Ghost Hunters is. So like that's the big difference I feel between the two shows. I could be wrong, but
I was just going to say, we call it overreaction, but I can guarantee I would react the exact same way that they do in Ghost Adventures, because like just freak out.
Yeah, like if you get a chance, like, you know, if you watch our episode on YouTube, there's a part where I freak out, and that's legit, like straight up, like, you know, holy shit, like I freaked out because it was unexpected. I didn't expect something to happen, and basically I set myself up in a tub in the bathroom. I had my entire team, the camera, my wife, everybody leave the hotel room. And basically the story is, if you haven't heard about the Gunter Hotel room 636, there was a murder that apparently happened in that room in 1965 by a guy named Walter Emmerich. And he basically took a woman there. Nobody knows who the woman is, who she was, but they know who he was. He went into the room, was there for a few days with this woman. And the day of his checkout, a maid went into the room, opened the door, and saw the room was covered, engulfed with blood. Like, it was, I mean, just covered in blood everywhere. And they saw Walter standing there with like I guess it was a box or some items in his hand. The maid just freaks out, screams. He looks at her and holds his finger up to his mouth and is like, shh, like to be quiet. She still freaks out.
No.
Yeah, she still freaks out and she's still screaming. So he bolts out of the room, and goes out. Sorry about that. And he goes out and basically he he bolts out of the room and goes out of a fire escape, and they never found him again. They didn't find traces of him because the maid and everybody starts doing their cheesemate thing and going talking to everybody before even calling the cops. It's like an hour later, the cops finally show up. The dude's gone, man. It's raining. The blood trail from the street is gone. They can't find him, but they never found a body. They never found a body. But the medical examiners concluded, like, man, whoever lost this blood is dead. Like, there's no way this person walked out of this room, and there was no body when they went in there. So, one of the bloodiest rooms and pieces of flesh and things like that they found was in the bathroom. So, after talking to hotel management and talking to people about the room, we discovered that bathroom is basically still the same bathroom. All they did was cover up one side of the room. They boarded off one half of the room and extended it to another side. So half of the room was renovated, and the whole room number changed to 620. So and 636 is now across the hall, but it's 636 was 620. You know what I mean? So anyway, so I did this experiment, and I was like, well, we had talked to people. We had went a week earlier just to, scope out the hotel and everything. And we met some people that were actually staying in that room that night, and they were like, you know what? My wife tried to go into the bathroom. She felt just ugly. She felt so ugly walking into that bathroom. She didn't even want to go in there. So I was like, so there's a lot of energy going on there. So let me think what we can do here. So sure enough, I did this experiment where I had everybody leave the room. I didn't want anybody but me inside the hotel room. I locked myself in the bathroom, set up 2 night vision cameras, and laid inside the tub. And I tried to, communicate and make some contact with whatever's in the room. And I set up a REM pod. And if people don't know what a REM pod is, it basically detects a break. It sets up a field, electromagnetic field of energy around the antenna. So if anything breaks that field, it alerts you. It goes off. It lets you know that there's something there. It detects any kind of static energy, electromagnetic energy. So I put one on the wall above me, and I put one on the floor outside the tub, and I just laid there and I started, trying to make contact. And at one point I'm putting something up, and as I'm leaning forward, I didn't go near the REM pod at all. It just goes off. So imagine being in a pitch black room and you just see this loud red flashing light go off, which you didn't set off, it triggered, and I freaked out. I was like, holy shit. Like, I was like, oh man. I was just laying in the tub, and I'm like, man, at that point I'm like, this is a bad idea. Like, I was like, so it was pretty interesting. So that happened. I did get an EVP, electronic voice phenomena on my voice recorder in there as well. Couldn't really make out what it was. So if you watch the shows, you'll hear it. They put disembodied voices. So that's basically what we put, because we couldn't make out what it was. But yeah, so the bathroom experiment was really cool. It was very interesting in that room. So the freaking out part, it happens to most of it. I think that's what most paranormal investigators get out of it. It's a little bit of that adrenaline rush. Hoping this, man, because you don't know what the hell you're dealing with half the time. You don't know if it's good or evil. Because I'm a firm believer, and a lot of people who do this will tell you that they're firm believers in the good, the evil presence, and demonic spirits, things like that. So, if there was a ghost in there that was Walter Emmerich, which they believe is the one that's still in there, I'm in there with the Stone Cold Killer. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think that's what freaks me out most about even considering doing it, is just the I guess the fact that just attachments and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like I'm that's what, because I know I've talked about it in other episodes, but again, I told you we kind of dabbled in it a little bit. I did some EVP stuff before, and just in that small amount of time that I started doing EVPs or trying to get EVPs, stuff started happening more frequently in the house that, actually the house I'm currently in right now. So that's always kind of what would freak me out about even considering doing it, more often, is just having more attachments and more things happen and stuff like that. So how I mean, have you ever had any attachments, and if you have, how do you like manage or get rid of, or either try and like shield yourself from that stuff?
So the biggest one, the reason I kind of stopped doing it, I settled down a while back, a few years ago, was sleep paralysis. So everybody talks about sleep paralysis. Sometimes it's a medical condition, whatever the case may be. I had never had it before. And after I did this one investigation at a cemetery, after that cemetery, I ended up coming home, and the sleep paralysis started happening, and it started happening a little more. And the scariest one was where I thought I saw a woman in the room with me. I thought I saw a woman in the room, and if you talk to anybody who's done these things before, you look out, you wake up, and it's like you have full consciousness of what's going on around you. So I'm waking up, and I see a woman in front of the bed, and I'm like, holy shit. And then I look out, and I see my dad still in the living room. I can see light coming from the hallway in the living room. My dad's in the living room, and I'm yelling out for my dad in my head, and I can't get a hold of him. I can't get that voice out to him and reach out for help. And I just see her walk across, look at me, and walk through into, I had another room in the back. It was like a laundry room. And man, I'm be honest with you. I was like, yeah, I need to calm the hell down. Like, I need to stop for a little while, because it just freaked me out. Because after that one, I was like, I didn't know if something did attach to me or not. If that's what the case was, like I said, I'm a firm believer in a lot of those things. So as far as, the bad ones coming around. And the thing is, the way I explain to people, they say not to mess with Ouija boards. I will never mess with the Ouija board. Did it once, and this is a true story, no BS. And I haven't told this story to many people, but we did the Ouija board thing. We asked it to leave because we felt like we were getting something, some activity with the Ouija board, some responses. We asked it to leave. It said no. And after that, and do you remember those phones that used to light up?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, those light up phones. Well, that son of a bitch just kept going off. It went off. We'd answer it, and nothing would happen. We'd turn it, and we hang up the phone.
REM
Phone
pod
went off
before
again.
there was REM pods.
Yeah, right. Yeah, definitely. So the phone went off, hung it up again. It did about 3 times. Finally, we freaked out, took the cord out. I shit you not, man. That phone rang again one more time.
No.
So
Okay.
whether it was an electronic thing, I don't know, but hell no. So yeah, that was just a little much for me. I was a little younger, so yeah, it was crazy.
I keep saying that I want to mess with the Ouija. I've never, but I'm just like so curious. But I feel like I shit you not, like the last week or two that I keep saying that.
Mm-hmm.
I keep hearing all these horror stories, and I'm just like, all right, okay,
Well,
fine.
there's another
I get
one
it.
for you.
I get it. Yeah, I know. I'm like, all right, okay, I won't do it. Fine.
Yeah.
Well, and the attachment thing. So this is the way I explain to people with the Ouija board. I feel like it's more of a gateway for whatever the history is behind it. I haven't really looked up to where it started, how it started, to be honest, but the way I explained it to people, you did? Yeah. So, yeah. And I want to hear about that, because I'd like to know, but the way I explained it to people is, and maybe it works the same way when you're trying to do EVP sessions, because you're basically conducting a seance is what I tell people, like when you're doing an EVP session, because you're trying to communicate with the dead. What other way is there to say that? You know what I mean? So, but the Ouija board, for some reason, maybe it's the thought process and the energy that you bring to it, because and it symbolizes something evil. And I think the energy that people sit around and play with this thing actually know that, they think that. So that's the energy that goes into it. That's the energy that you're bringing out. Right. So my explanation to it is, let's say you're in the middle of a field, a blank open field, and you have a gate. There's a square closed off gate, and there's a bunch of dogs in there, right? You open that gate. What's the first dog that's probably going to come out to get you?
The most aggressive one.
Exactly. And that's how I explain the Ouija board to people. Like, I'm like, don't mess with it. It's just the energy that goes into it. It's a lot of negative energy, because that's your thought process going into it. That you look at the Ouija board, you associate it with, evil. You do. Like, there's no doubt about that. So I feel like the energy that you bring into it is the energy that comes out of it. So that's my take on it, man. I mean, the first thing that's going to come at you is something that want to bite you. So.
And so how do you protect against that? Or do you just like go in and hopefully nothing attaches?
I take the positive energy. I go in with a strong mind. A lot of ghost investigators and paranormal investigators will tell you, ghost hunters and paranormal investigators will tell you, you have to go in with this positive energy. And before even doing it, you have to prep yourself and know what you're dealing with. You have to prep yourself going into it feeling, strong and expecting, if something happens, expect for it to happen and be strong about it, and keep a strong mind of going into it. There's tons of websites out there that sell, holy water. They sell saints, protection saints, and medals and little trinkets and things like that. Crystals, that you can carry with you for the positive energy. Sage, for cleansing the air. I honestly go in there with an open mind and a positive mind. And I feel when I start the investigation, I explain who I am. And when I leave the investigation, I let them know they're not allowed to follow me. I straight up just tell them, you're not allowed to come with me. You need to stay here. Thank you for speaking with us, but this is your place. This is where you stay. I'm not one of those guys that, tells people, if I go into a residential home, tells them that, hey, we're going to get rid of the thing for you, whatever it is, the ghost, the demon, whatever you feel is here. I'm not one of those guys. I don't know how to do that. I have no experience in doing that. I find it hard. That's one of the things I find hard for people to say that they do, because it's, once again, how do you know you did it? So, it's just mentally preparing yourself, to be honest. Rule number 1, if you feel that there's something evil there, For me, if you walk into it and you just do not feel good, you can get the creeps, that's fine. But if you truly deep down in your body feel something is not right, get out, cut it off, go home. Like don't even try to dig into it. Just leave it alone.
Have you ever had like, or I guess worked with like a medium or someone who says they can communicate with people who've passed on, or would you be open to it?
Yeah, I'd be open to it. I've never met anybody. I'm very skeptical when it comes to that. I believe they exist, and I believe the ones that are honest and truthful about it are the ones that aren't making money or trying to project themselves out to be. The ones that out of nowhere tell you. So, like I said, family background. My grandmother was one of those where she told you, "Hey, don't do this," or "Hey, I feel something," and you went ahead and did it. Something bad ended up happening to you, and she knew it. And but she wasn't one of those that went out there. She was known throughout the neighborhood to be a healer. Apparently she healed people.
Curandera?
Yeah, and apparently, after she would heal somebody, she'd get really sick afterwards. It was crazy. Yeah, she'd get sick. But she wasn't one of those that went out and told people. People just were, hey, I have a friend. And they'd go to my grandmother and she'd decide whether she was going to help them or not, But she never made herself out there. I just found out I have a cousin who never speaks about it. And apparently, there's some stuff out there that she sees. And but once again, I never knew. Nobody knows, things like that. So I think the people that don't speak to it and keep it to themselves are the ones that are more likely to be the ones that are being honest and truthful about it. And I do believe they're out there. So, so it is what it is on that end.
How do you go about finding these locations? Like, do people reach out to you, or do you go find them?
Yeah, so the fun thing is, once again, San Antonio, Texas, so much history and so much history about so many states, but it's not hard to find here. Places like the Donkey Lady Bridge and the Ghost Tracks, all that, obviously they're not going to be places that we really go to. They're fun to go hang out at. I've had a few beers at the Donkey Lady Bridge a few times, but as far as finding the places, the way I've done it now is my brother. So I've partnered with my brother, and he has a page. And if you want to hear some interesting stories, go to give him a call. His page is called Hasta la Muerte Chronicles. So we've partnered with him, and he started his page and I was starting mine at the same time. We were talking about it. We're like, hey, well, let's do this together. So what he does is he digs up all the history, historical places that things have happened, either murders or, the ghost stories, and finds the background in the stories to what's going on. So if there's hauntings in a certain hotel, he'll know what the hauntings are about. He'll find out what the history is behind it. And he posts these stories on his page. So definitely look him up. It's called Hasta la Muerte Chronicles on Facebook and on Instagram. And so we partner with him. He says, hey, I got this one place, check this out, whatever the case may be. And we'll go. So that's how episode 1 was made. So he told us about the ghost of Walter Emmerich and the murder that happened in that room. And like, dude, let's do it. So many people have already investigated. Let's do it our way and go in there and do this. So, there's different hotels. Like I didn't even know that I believe it's a Holiday Inn, downtown. It used to be the old jailhouse. It used to be the jailhouse, the original jail of San Antonio, and it's a historical building. So even though they turned it into a hotel, if you go and look it up, you'll see that they haven't messed with the actual structural building itself, like the outside and everything. The bars are still on the windows, which is really interesting for a hotel.
Yeah.
And the room where the bodies used to be hung for death sentencing, that the hatch is still in one of the hotel rooms. The open hatch is still there.
No. Wow.
That's interesting, right? I didn't know that. So my brother's, he digs up all this cool, interesting stuff, man. And if you go look at it, if you Google it, look it up, man, it's pretty interesting. And Sheriff Salazar, the sheriff now, still has the rope. And the reason they stopped the public hangings in that area, was because the last body that they hung, the rope basically took off the dude's head, and blood got all over the place. And it was a pretty interesting story. So Sheriff Salazar still has the bloody rope at the jail. Like he still has that rope. It's kind of like a token, trophy? I guess, whatever. Yeah. So that's still out there. So just all that interesting stuff. My brother finds it for us, and we go into. So look up his page, man. He has a lot of cool stories on there. A lot of history as far as things that have happened within Texas and sometimes outside of Texas. It's pretty cool. So yeah, we try to go through that.
Do these places charge you to like go investigate there?
Yep. Oh yeah. Oh, they capitalize on that, man. Some places are about five bills, to get in. Yeah.
I always ask a question, and usually I ask it at the very beginning, but I was just so into like whatever was going to happen that I was like, let's just go for it. Mm-hmm. But what was your very first paranormal experience that you ever had that like kind of, or maybe something that kind of turned you on into like, okay, I'm a believer. Like, let's kind of dive into this and find out what's going on here.
I don't think it was an experience. It was all the stories. All the ghost stories that my family had. My grandfather apparently saw the devil when he was a younger child. Saw him in the basement of his school. close to on the west side of San Antonio, closer to the downtown area. Yeah, so it was a lot of stories about my grandmother. My dad used to tell me a story about, I believe it was his cousin or my cousin, I can't remember, back in the day on the west side. All the ghost stories happen on the west side, all the but there was a story about, once again, and it's a lot of it's like kind of evil stuff, but um, a story about, he was sitting on the porch and there was like a field and he saw fire out in the field, and apparently once he saw the fire, the story is, or the legend and the myth is, if you see a fire in the field, there's buried treasure there's something valuable hidden there. So he hired men to go and dig into the ground, into the dirt, to find what it was. And once the men were pretty deep in, they were digging, and apparently it's a true story, but it was a really cool story. As they were digging, they looked up and they saw a man standing there, and they could swear that he had almost the foot of the horse or whatever, the bull. And they looked up, and in Spanish he says, why are you looking for something that isn't yours? And the men freaked out, jumped out of the hole. 2 of them ended up getting sick. It was pretty insane. So just a lot of those stories just intrigued me. And that's when I went into it. My first actual paranormal experience is the Chinese graveyard. I don't know if you know about the Chinese graveyard in San Antonio, Texas. Yeah, so it's off of Zarzamora Road. It's out going towards, I believe, 1604. It's gated now, but it's just one drive-in cemetery. It's an old cemetery. It's still used to this day. We went in there at night one time, and while we went in, there's nothing really around it. Now there's like a big factory in the back, and not a factory, but like I don't know if it's like a mechanic shop or whatever it is, but it's pretty far off. But it's in the middle of this field, in the middle of like the country road out there. And we went into there one night just to, conduct it was like I think it was not, if not my first, one of the first investigations I ever did. So we went in there with our cameras and some EVP recorders and stuff. And we get off the truck and I'm setting up a tripod for the camera. And as we're walking up, we set up the camera. I walk off into the graveyard, and it's one drive in, one drive out. You reverse to get out. And the graves are just on the side, all on the side too. It's pitch black out there because there's no lights. Like I said, it's out in the middle of the country. We went in there, and all these dogs started barking. I don't know where the dogs were, but they sounded like they were around us. Freaked me the hell out. I'm like, oh, dude, we're going to get bit, And all the dogs started barking. And I shit you not, they all stopped at the same time at one point.
Oh, no.
All the dogs just
Wow.
like that. And I'm just like, this. And once again, I was like, this doesn't feel right. Let's go.
Yeah.
So we got in the truck and we took off. When we went back and reviewed the video footage, a lot of people were skeptical about orbs, especially out in the fields, because they could be bugs. And I'd say 90% of the time they probably are bugs. But this one was just different. We caught an orb, and it went across, and it didn't fly like a bug. It literally floated, and it had this like motion to it where it was just like lingering in front of the camera, like in a way that the motion just wasn't normal, and it had almost like a comet. Like it had this streak of residual light coming behind it, and
like a tail.
And it just faded out. Like it didn't like come out of frame. It just disappeared out of nowhere. So that was my first one, and unfortunately, my old 8mm tapes got ruined in a very ugly event. So yeah, I don't have that video anymore. I wish I did. That was before we could transfer those 8mm into like WAV files and everything like that. Yeah. So but that was my first like real big experience that I had when I first started, and it was so cool. And to this day, I still gives me chills about the dogs, man. I don't know how they just literally stopped at one time, and I was like, did they have an alarm system, like the dog barking? But I'm like, why would they have one of those out there? Like, it just made no sense. I was looking for a reason, but I couldn't think of one. So
they were hellhounds.
Yeah,
I think it's very because I mean we also got like heard a lot of stories growing up, and I think it's just the Hispanic culture. I mean, because you're Hispanic, right?
Yeah,
I'm assuming.
You're fine, man. Yeah.
No, it's just the Hispanic culture, and just because we grew up with a lot of that stuff. And if you listen on our episode 4, our Halloween is 4, right? Our Halloween special.
Yes.
Our grandmother also talked to us about a story where she also saw the devil, or what she thought was the devil. You know, she knew, she felt in her heart that was the devil. So we also grew up with all those stories, and that's, I think, part of the reason why as well that we started kind of getting into this and being so fascinated by everything. You know what I mean? And we just haven't taken that step into paranormal investigation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to have y'all join along.
Yes. Okay. That was like
She's been waiting for the invitation since I told her we were having you on.
Oh my god.
By all means, yeah. By all means, yeah, please. I'll be happy to invite you guys once we find a solid one where we can take it. Like, you have to be real picky on how many people you bring along. In my experience, the less the better. But if we're going to go
Mhm.
to a fun location, by all means, I don't mind. It's just when we're doing the really serious investigation where you really want to do something, the less better. Just because you don't want any false positives and stuff, and evidence being tampered with, because more people walking is more thought process of recordings and hearing something that really wasn't there because of the footsteps, or wherever
Yeah.
the case may be. More people being there is just causes more disruption, I think. So, but when we do the fun places, yeah, I'd be happy to bring along, and if we've already done an investigation in one place, by all means, we're happy to go back and bring some people along with us, if they want. So, yeah, one of the places that we like to go to is Cemetery One, which is really big. It's huge. I mean, it's a massive cemetery, one of the oldest cemeteries in San Antonio. Very historical. A lot of famous people buried there. Like I said, once you go to my brother's page, Aslam With Their Chronicles, he has a story on there. There was an actress that lived here, that was buried. I believe it was with her Ferrari. So there's an actual
What?
yeah, there's a sports car buried in that
Wow.
cemetery with her. She made sure that, I think her last name was West. She's an actress named West. So yeah, a lot of fun stuff like that. But we went there not too long ago, about a month or two ago, and my wife, just getting into this, she never wanted to really dabble in it. She just feels like a lot of it is not so much ghosts. She feels that they're evil. She firmly believes that these are evil things, and they're not real ghosts, and they deceive you. And I love bringing her along too, because she's a huge skeptic. Like, she will debunk anything and everything that she can, and I love that. I'm like, find the reason, like, tell me so I can,
Yeah.
Um, but it's funny because when we watch those ghost hunter shows, one of the haunted side, there's always somebody that says, "Oh, I got the chills. I got the chills." Oh, it's cold. I feel cold. And she's like, "Oh my god, why do they always get cold?" And then I'm like, "It happens. Trust me, it happens." So one of the first nights I took her with me to the cemetery, we walk into this one area, and the reason we went to this one area, it's kind of a walled off area, and there's a family, the Groos family, that's buried there. It's like a squared off area, and they're all buried along the wall. And the last time we were there, we had some my niece's friends and stuff were there, and my brother was kind of giving them a tour in the history of the place. And one of the girls didn't feel right; she felt kind of dizzy and out of it, and she just didn't feel good. So they walked out of that area. Well, one thing is that people, say that spirits and ghosts can be, felt through electromagnetic energy. Too much electromagnetic energy can cause a person to feel dizzy, disoriented, things like that. So that's kind of like, two and two. You kind of put two and two together. So I was like, let's go check it out over there. So me and my buddy went walking over there, and we took the EMF meter. And once we were there, I tried to do an EVP session. Nothing happened. Walked away, and as I'm walking out, my EVP meter spikes and alerts me. So I'm like, oh man, we got a reading. So we decided we're going to go back. So when we went back and I took my wife, we started setting up our cameras and started setting up everything. I look over to her, and she's standing there with her arms crossed, and she's like, and she made a face, and I'm like, what's wrong? And she's like, nothing. And I was like, what's wrong? She's like, I got chills. And it was a very humid night that night, I'll tell you that much. And I was like, oh, you got chills, did you? I was like, oh, interesting. And I was like, that's not so funny anymore, is it? And she was like, shut up. She was all
Yeah.
upset about, but she felt those chills. The cool part about it is, if you go to our Instagram page, there's a part on there where, right after that, my brother's behind us and he's taking pictures. At first, he's looking at it, and we went through the lighting process. My cameraman is a professional, very, very tenured photographer that's worked with, he does Adobe, he does Photoshop, he does everything with lighting. He looks at all our photos and tries to, debunk anything that comes out of them. What's funny is, after that incident happened with my wife, my brother took a picture, and we see two shadowed figures standing in front of my wife. And I outline them and map them out on the picture so you can see it. But one looks like
Oh no.
one looks like he has a freaking cowboy hat on. But they're standing right in front of my wife, which was the interesting part. Which is, she's the only one that
Oh
felt anything that night. So if you get a chance, go and look at that. So it's pretty cool. So yeah, that's that.
yes.
So that's a very cool cemetery to go to. There's a lot of history, a lot of things going on there too. So if you ever get a chance, go drive by it.
I was gonna ask, how difficult is it for, like, because I, like, you were talking about, like, not like wanting, or it's better to not have that many people and stuff like that. I mean, you're investigating in a basically in an active, I guess, hotel, meaning that there's guests there and stuff like that. So how do you get around that? Like, getting a lot of, like,
Background
noise,
noise.
yeah, and stuff like that.
Documentation. So any investigation, you're going to look for all the reasons why it's not a ghost. You go into it thinking, I'm not expecting to see something, but you're hoping to. And you want to basically, from the minute you start your actual investigation, you start documenting. document. If you kick something on the floor, you document that. If you hear something in the other room, you document that. You're basically canceling out every known possible thing. And it's hard. Like that cemetery, the cemetery one, it's on the main road. It's on like Houston Street or Commerce or something like that. So it's hard to do EVP sessions there because you get a lot of traffic, you get a lot of things like that. So in hotels like that, it is a little more difficult. But if you're doing it in the middle of the night and on a weekday where there's not a lot going on, and right now during the quarantine, it's even more perfect because there's no traffic going on out there. It's a lot easier to separate, the noises that aren't there.
Well, one of the questions I was going to ask was what's been your favorite location so far, and like why was it like you got good evidence, or it was just like extra creepy?
Honestly, just this last one, the Gunter, just because that bathroom session. Like I've never had anything creep up on me like that. Yeah, the bathroom session. It was just, I mean, I've never been scared. Like that legit scared me. Like it was just nuts. Like it was like, I don't know, like I was creeped out probably a good 30 minutes afterwards, man. I still had goosebumps, like just because of that. Like, cause you have to be there. Like if you look at it, it feels, I don't know. It's a different feeling when it could have been something else, but this, I know what it was. And because I knew what it was and I knew that there was no other reason for it, it scared the hell out of me. And I love that. Don't get me wrong. I love it.
So hold on, time out real quick. I don't know how, but my computer went from being fully charged to about 3%. It's a brand new computer. So man. I'm going to let me go like plug it in so that we don't lose any of this audio. Give me like 1 second. Sorry.
The other day, something I guess fell out of my girl's closet and they don't know how it happened or whatever. And my daughter got after me. She's like, "Dad," she's like, "this is all your fault." She's like, "You're the one doing that." I'm like, "It ain't me." Like, it's the first time something. But I think it's just the little events that have been happening. Like her feeling like something was following her down the stairs. She thought it was me, and asking my wife like, "Hey, did something? Was Dad following me down the stairs?" And my wife's like, "No, he's been up here the whole time." And she was like, "Are you sure he wasn't trying to scare me?" And my wife's like, "No, like that wasn't your dad. Like he's been up here." He's like, "He was right behind me on the steps. I could feel him walking, and I could hear him walking down the steps with me." And my wife's like, "That wasn't him." And so after I heard that story, I went in and got our SLS camera. Have you seen the SLS cameras, the Kinect cameras, the 360 Kinect cameras? How they
stick figure kind of thing.
Yeah. So I had just gotten that. Like I had just bought one, and I was like, let's see if this bad boy works. So I went, and I'll send you this photo if you want to put this on the show, and I'll send it to you. I'll send you the photo because I haven't posted it on our page. I posted one where we were in a room one time, and you see a stick figure floating. You see something floating. It has the arms and feet, and it looks crazy. But the one that I got here in the house, I've never posted. But an interesting is after that happened, I went and got the SLS camera, and I went outside to the stairway. Didn't see anything in the stairway, but when I turned, I got my girl's bedroom. Outside of the bedroom in the hallway, right in front of the stairs and in front of the room, pitch black. There's nothing there that would give it a false positive. There's nothing in that hallway that would have given the SLS camera to map out a human. It's just a wall, and it's pitch black. It's a wall, and it caught someone standing outside the girl's door. And so I was like, yeah. So, it was just really creeping the girl. I'm talking out loud. They're upstairs, but yeah, the girls don't know about that one either. But yeah, so it's pretty crazy. So after she went down the steps, I caught that stick figure outside of the room. And I'll be happy to I'll send you all that picture in a little while if you want. But yeah, it's pretty creepy, man. So little things like that, I love it. I mean, it creeps me out, but I love it. And I'm hoping, these devices are actually picking up actual, paranormal activity that is real evidence. They're very, it's a very, very, iffy topic with a lot of people, legit like scientific ghost hunters don't believe in the SLS. They don't believe in spirit boxes, and I get it. And I totally understand it. And I'm on both ends of the spectrum. I'm like, yes, I believe it, but I also don't, because you never know. It could be, something not concrete, but, so that I feel in that instance, I felt like there was something there just because you feel it and you know it. And, this is off of a belief system. Paranormal investigating it's a belief. It's not, you have to really believe in it to know that it's there and actually experience it. And like I said, I want to experience someone pulling my sheets off of my bed on me, because that way, I can 110% tell you this shit is real, but deep down from the little things that I have experienced, I know it's real, it's the little things, but you just want to be able to say like, look, dude, like, and I want people that don't believe to experience it too, so that they know, like, there's no explanation for your sheets getting pulled off your bed, and someone sitting on the bed next to you and feeling that imprint and feeling that energy. Like, I wish people that were non-believers would experience that in a good way. I don't want anything bad or malevolent to happen to them, but it's so cool. It's so interesting to know that there's something out there other than what we are here. There's another realm of it. So I love that stuff, man. Yeah, and there's connections too. So some people ask, like, how come, like, in the hotels, like, because the ghost and I just keep bringing this up because it's just so recent, and there's just so much behind it that I was like, oh my god, this is such a crazy place. The ghost of Walter Emmerich that's supposedly in that room, why did he end up in that room, right? But because he went to the St. Anthony Hotel, and they found him a few days later in the St. Anthony Hotel. And here's the weird thing: he kept requesting the same room, 636, and they couldn't give it to him at the St. Anthony when he was on the run, and he was checking in under a different name. So they gave him 536, a floor below. We don't know why he wanted 636, but my point being, he shot himself before the police could make it into his room. So there's photos and all that on the episode where we show him dead on the bed where he shot himself. But the funny thing is, like, how is he over here at the Gunter when he shot himself at the St. Anthony Hotel? Well, here's the cool thing. When we went back a few weeks later, we got another tour. Well, we found out that in one of the boiler rooms, there used to be an underground tunnel to that hotel. And you'll never guess where that underground tunnel leads to, the St. Anthony Hotel.
That's insane.
Wow.
So I was like, dude, like, because I kept telling myself, that was one of my things being a little skeptical about. I was like, why would he be here? Like, why do they think it's Walter Emmerich in this hotel? Like, if he shot himself in the St. Anthony, shouldn't we be at the St. Anthony asking him questions? Not here. Yeah. And then we were doing this tour, and one of the guys shows us, he tells us, hey, check this out. And he opens up this big old metal door, and it's like all creepy. I'm like, oh shit, okay, what's that? And it's just a doorway that has another piece of metal covering the door, like it's just a metal wall. And he was like, this is a tunnel. And I was like, oh shit. I was like, okay, well, where does it go? And he was like, it goes straight to the St. Anthony Hotel. I was like,
wow.
And in my mind, I was like, did the cops know about this? I was like, maybe that's how he got away. Like, because they couldn't find him for days. Yeah. And all of a sudden, they got suspicious when this guy made it to the St. Anthony Hotel. I was like, I don't know. But it was just crazy how there's a tunnel that led to the St. Anthony Hotel. And here we have a ghost that's here that killed himself in the St. Anthony Hotel. I was like, I was like trying to link the two together. Like, how would this be possible? And that was just kind of a cool little fact. So I don't know.
So 636, Apocalypse revealed, number 636. He shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment will ascend forever and ever. This symbolizes their love of self and the world and the ensuing lusts and stemming from these conceit of their own intelligence and torment in hell because of them.
Wow. So, and the funny thing too
is that has anything to do with it.
I don't think so. Yeah.
I hope. Well, let's hope not. No. Well, the funny thing is when you get off the elevator on that floor too, the elevators are marked with the floors that they are, and there's 3 elevators on that floor. So when you get off and you look at the elevators, it just says 666 when you get off the elevator on those floors.
Wow.
And that was creepy too. My brother pointed that out. I was like, dude, check that out. And I was like, dude, yeah, you're right. So my brother from Muscle Chronicles, he was like, dude, I've never noticed that. I was like, yeah, it's kind of freaky, man. I was like, and the funny thing is that door is right in front of the 666. So like you get off the elevator, and as soon as you take that left, the door was supposed to go straight into it. It's not there anymore because of the remodel, but originally that door led right into that. So it's just cool little creepy facts like that make it fun. But yeah, man, who knows? Just fun little interesting facts like that make this what it is, and how much fun it is to get creeped out.
And I'm sorry that I was looking this up, but
I'm glad you did, man.
That's talked about it, and I was just like, I have to, because the only other thing that I found was the angel number 636, and it just says it's simply a message to encourage you to be patient. Your guardian angel can see the determination. Yeah.
It makes the story just a little bit cooler. No, and I love that, man. And I kind of want to get more into that. Like, I want to start studying, like, demonology and all those things, because I'm into all of that and I love it. And I feel if you have a strong mind and you like, I would straight up just want to be present in a room where an exorcism is happening, which they do happen still. I want to be there when that happens. I want to see it. I want to experience it and know. I want to explore all those realms of the paranormal and other world things that happen within this world. So it's just interesting that things like that happen. And maybe there is a connection. I don't know. I can't say that there is, but I love it. I love it. I'm glad you looked that up, man. It's so cool.
Yeah. I just recently finished. I have to listen to audiobooks because I take forever to read them. But
Same way, man.
the
Trust me.
yeah, the demonologist. I can't. I'm like blanking on the name of the author right this second, but it's about Ed and Lorraine Warren's like whole history and everything. Basically, all the things. Let me see. What is it? Gerald Brittle is the yeah, but yeah, the demonologist, like just hearing, because like the author is, or not the author, I'm sorry, but the narrator does like bits and pieces of like actual audio that they got from different like poltergeist activity and like possessions and stuff, and like the way that he does it is so good, and I'm just like, oh god, no, like this is creepy. I can't even imagine what the actual audio sounds like, and
Yeah.
when he does like the grunts and like the growling and everything, I'm just like, no, done. I can't
Yeah,
listen
no,
right now.
I
It's
just,
good.
oh man, and it is scary. It is scary, and I think that's what I
Yeah.
get out of this too. And I've always been that adrenaline junkie, looking for something exciting to do. I was a deputy here in San Antonio for almost good 7 years, I believe, before I tried to venture off in career change, and I wanted to do film and writing and all that.
Did you experience a lot of like? Did you or any paranormal things like being on the job, or do you
No,
feel
no.
like you may
I
have experienced like that?
most of my time being, I did work in the detention center, the main jail. So I never experienced anything like that, and especially in the jail, I never saw anything like that. But as other stories, there's a YouTube video that we put out there, the Wildflower Cemetery here in San Antonio. We went and checked it out. But the funny thing about the cemetery is they've gotten a lot of calls. Deputies get a lot of calls out there. So one deputy apparently saw some women that were digging. They got a call about some people in the cemetery. There's some ladies that were digging, and they were by a grave digging. The deputy drives in, tells them, "Hey, come here, let me talk to you." The deputy's calling to him. They're ignoring him. They finally look at him. They get up and they go behind a tree. And apparently, I think it was like two crows, or I forget what it was. But the women disappear. He never saw them again. Never saw them again.
Whole body chills like all over right now. Oh my
Never saw
god.
them again. Yeah, and there's and I don't know if it was that one, but there was another one where I believe he saw. No, and then there was another deputy who drove in there, got a call about somebody being in there, went, showed up to the cemetery, saw a man in the cemetery. Well, when the man started walking towards the car, when he called him over, had no legs. He had no legs, and he kind of just disappeared. Deputy flipped out, took off, quit, and refused to go into that area again. Like, he was like, "I'm not." He quit shortly after. Refused to patrol that area again. Like, wanted nothing to do with it. When the deputy that saw the women went over there, he saw that there was stuff on the graves that showed like markings, like almost like it was like a witchcraft kind of thing, some kind of a thing that they were doing there on the grave. But the deputy swears up and down like those women were nowhere to be found. After they went behind that tree, that he could not find them. So, yeah, that cemetery is pretty interesting.
And I think it's cool too, because like that whole the ladies running behind the tree and then like turning into birds is like also a very Hispanic like
Lechuzas.
thing.
That's
Like
just a witch
about the
thing too.
yeah the lechuzas
Yeah.
So, and I remember one time I saw one of those mothers land on this tree that we have outside of the house. Like, I just saw this big old white ass owl, and those aren't really. I mean, at least I've only seen them about maybe 3 times in my life here in Brownsville or in the valley.
Yeah, I've never seen one.
Yeah, but that thing it came. It was huge, and it just landed in the tree. And then I remember seeing it. I remember calling like to my dad and my mom, and I told him, "Hey, look, this owl, just landed, or this bird, I guess. I don't even remember if I knew it was an owl. Landed in the tree, and then like as soon as they got to the door, like to look at it, it flew off. Like,
why do you have all these stories that you've never told me? Like, I've never heard this before. And we lived together for 18 years.
I remembered. I just remembered that one right now that he was talking about. The lechuzas and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? I remember that happening.
So many stories out there, man. My brother asked me to bring this up with my brother if you get him on here. He has tons of stories. He's older than me. He's a good like 12, 14 years older than me. So, growing up on the west side and everything of San Antonio, and just hearing the family stories, he's heard a ton more. He's experienced a lot more than I have. Sorry, how you get those shadow people things. I'm not even BSing you. Just saw something in front of me in the garage right here. So yeah, he has tons of stories, man. He has like tons of stories. from our past, from our family history. So I really want you to get him on here, man, because he has such cool stories to tell you, and he's one of the reasons I got into this too as a young kid, just because I heard all the stories about from him and the things he used to experience in his house. He used to see things in his house all the time. I think he's had some experiences with the Lechusas as well, so he would have some stories to tell you about that as well. So there's a lot of things that happen to him. For some reason, he might be a magnet for it. I'm not too sure, but he's experienced a lot of stuff like that. As far as a lot of that old, the legends and myths and everything that we've experienced as a Hispanic culture.
I mean, I appreciate you for accepting the invitation, man. Because I'd
No,
seen
thank
you
you,
post on the page, the group a couple times, and I was like, man, I really want to get a paranormal investigator on. And like I said, I seen him post a few times. I was like, let me see if he'd be willing to do this.
Oh yeah,
with us.
man. There's nothing special about me at all, or just there's a lot more guys that have done this their entire life, like without any breaks within San Antonio, that are great. I've seen them post on the page quite a few times, like the Texas, San Antonio Ghost Hunters. They go on like Fox News or KBB News, whatever it was, KBB News.
Wow.
I don't even think it's still a thing. But yeah, they're out there. You might want to get a hold of them. There's a lot of groups within San Antonio actually that are, I'm pretty sure will oblige you by giving you some probably better stories too. Because like I said, I've recently got back into it a few months ago and had a few investigations since then. But as a kid, not like, well, I won't say kid, a young adult in 20s and so on. Did quite a few back then too. But yeah, as far as since I've dug back into it, I've experienced a lot already, and it's so interesting. But yeah, I appreciate you having me back, not having me back, but having me on the show. So
If there's anywhere people can reach you or get hold of you if they have questions or anything.
yeah, definitely. So if you ever, have any questions or want to reach out to us for an investigation or anything like that, you can get a hold of us through email at theparanormaljournalshow@gmail.com, or you can find us on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube at The Paranormal Journal. So if you look us up through that, on my personal Instagram that is public that you can look at is Writer J Mendez. So if you want to look me up there and get a hold of me there, you can get a hold of me there. My brother's site, like I said, I have to shout it out because he's a partner with us in the show. It's Hasta la Muerte Chronicles. He's on Facebook and Instagram, so look him up so you can get a hold of him if you have any questions or want to look at some of the cool history that he posts within San Antonio, Texas, throughout all of Texas and stuff like that. So please, by all means, look him up and give us a look and hopefully we entertain you. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Thank
all right,
you,
guys. All right, take it easy.
I don't know. So can you start it?
Are you pissed through it?
I'm kind of annoyed, yeah. Here, I'll just talk about that. I'll start with that. Sorry, I can't figure out how to end this episode or start this outro because I'm just super pissed that I just now realized I've been recording with the computer microphone and not my goddamn professional microphone. So if the audio sounded like shit this entire episode, I'm sorry. My fault for not checking. I can't even start this segment because I'm just so mad at myself.
No, I mean, I should have. I usually try and catch those things before, and I mean, honestly, on my end, when I was listening to you, it sounded fine. So I didn't even realize that you weren't using the proper mic until you connected, and you're like, hey, this and the audio, and I'm like, oh, dude, you know what? It does sound a lot better now. So it shouldn't be too bad.
I'm just mad. It's fine. Anyway, how about that episode, guys?
I enjoyed it. I was excited to begin with, and then after actually talking to him more, I was kind of like, oh shit, dude, this is pretty tight.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I don't know. It's because I didn't know what to expect. I'd seen Joseph post a few times on the Facebook group, and then I told Michelle, hey, what do you think about this? And I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know what she was gonna say. I didn't know if she was going to say, let's save it for later, this or something. And I was like, but then she was like, yes. I was like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah. No, you heard my excitement when he's like, yeah, we'll take you on an investigation. I'm like, that's literally all I wanted. So
yeah, literally I don't think it was the first day, but fairly, close after I told her that, he had accepted. She was like, man, I hope he invites us on an investigation.
It's something that I've always wanted to do, right? But like I said in the episode, always been too chicken shit. So, but also if I have someone who has done it enough and has a better understanding and better knowledge as far as how to do it or what to do, I think I'll feel better, safer somehow. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
like conjure a demon myself. So yeah, I would love to. And obviously, gonna have to like update you guys, and maybe we can get some audio while we're out there and make an episode out of it. That'd be cool.
Figure out how to do that for sure. But I mean, I'm excited to have him back on eventually, and definitely talk to his brother and see what stories he's got and his experiences and stuff like that. That'd be pretty cool. And I just like his mentality towards the ghost hunting. You know what I mean? About trying to find information and stuff like that, and just not going like everything is something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's still some skepticism to it. Healthy skepticism. Your
Yeah.
cat, dude.
Yeah. It'd be cool to hear what his brother has to say. Like I said, like he said, maybe he has more stories as far as family's concerned and stuff like that. So it'd be pretty cool. And just like, again, that's the skepticism, I think, it's good to, just not believe everything like you're hearing or seeing or listening to, or, thinking that event blowing this is, something, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm also excited to see those pictures that he said that he wanted to
I
send
know.
us.
Yeah. Well, I kind of want to just look it up right now. But we'll be putting those in on our Instagram and Facebook. So if you guys follow us there and you want to hear what exactly he's talking about, we'll be posting those on there so you can take a look. It should be interesting.
And also, we'll link his YouTube channel and his Instagram and everything you guys need to know to be able to go check his stuff out and watch his videos on YouTube. And if you want to share any of your stuff with us, guys, I mean, go ahead and write us, DM us, email us. We can do listener stories, or we can do an interview with you. You can be 100% anonymous. We don't even have to mention your name at the beginning of the interview if you don't want to, or we could just not mention your name in the story as well. But you need to go ahead and send us a DM or an email to our Instagram, which is We Believe DU Podcast, at We Believe DU Podcast. Twitter is at WBDY Podcast. Our Facebook is We Believe DU with a question mark, and our email is webelievedu@gmail.com. So make sure to write those stories in, guys, because we want to hear from you, because we believe.
Do you?